Welcome to Jets Rewind. This is Marty Shupek. I'm joined by not Tammy Kaplan, but Ralph Sharega. He's in Massachusetts. And Ray Clifford, who's back from the West Coast. It's Sunday. It's August 29th. We're recording this at 7 p.m. It's about 3 to 5 hours after the Shaq Lawson trade that they picked up. We're going to get right into that. But first, guys, how you doing? And Ralph, let's start with your classic trivia.
Classic trivia. So last year, the Jets had their second worst record in history. Their worst record, of course, was 96 at 1-15. The following year, can you tell me who they played and what was the final score of their opening game after going 1-15? I'll give you a hint. It was one of the most shocking results in the history of the Jets, as far as I'm concerned.
So that was what, 97?
97, yeah.
97. Okay. And we're not allowed to look it up, right?
Well, you can look it up. Just don't tell anybody.
All right. The Jets, they lost Carl Lawson, and Joe Douglas, I guess, was working the phones, and he picked up another Lawson, Shaq Lawson, who was down in Houston, but very familiar with the AFC East. He was first drafted with Buffalo, then actually signed with Miami, and they traded him to Houston. But Ralph, give us your assessment on Shaq Lawson. How do you think he'll fit, and what's your opinion of the trade?
I think, considering the predicament that the Jets were in, I think Douglas did really well. I always have confidence in him in trades. I think he doesn't overpay for stuff. He's patient. And as far as Lawson goes, first of all, the Jets save money. They don't have to get a new jersey. They just give him Carl Lawson's jersey. He came out of Clemson, very highly regarded. I think he's been an underachiever. He does have talent, though. If you watch film of him, he does have talent. Let's hope that Saleh and his staff and his scheme can get more out of him. Maybe he'll be happy to be here, especially against Buffalo. Maybe he'll really take it to another level. But I think he's going to be there. He's going to take the other Lawson's place, and it was really needed because Bryce Huff, the last two games, has not been that good.
Yeah, he really hasn't. And let me see if I could fill in some spaces with this. And Ray, you could chime in too. He signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with Miami 2020. And then Miami traded him in March, which I don't quite understand. By the way, Houston's going to be paying $7 million of his salary in 2021. Last year for Miami, he started 7 games, played in 14. He had 4 sacks, 32 tackles. He had 4 tackles for a loss. But I think the most interesting statistic, he had 18 quarterback hits, which is good. So he'll bring pressure. Now, at first, I wasn't really crazy about it. I was questioning it. I'm going to tell you that this was a great move, and I'll tell you why. Because a guy like this, if the same thing happened to BB up in New England, and he did this for a 6th-round pick, and they paid $7 million of the salary, everybody would be talking, what a genius Belichick is. That Belichick is unbelievable. What a genius. So just the fact that it was Joe Douglas, I'm going to give him the same accolades that Bill Belichick would have gotten. So I think it was a great trade. I think that Robert Saleh is the type of coach. He could work his magic. He's a great motivator. And we'll just have to see if all this Robert Saleh stuff that we see can transition to the regular season. Ray, what's your take on the trade?
Well, there's nothing bad about it. I mean, we were in dire straits for someone, and not that the guys we have can't add to it, but we didn't have, once Lawson went down, you could see the difference in the defense. I think part of why he signed for so much with Miami was he was coming off his best year with Buffalo that year before. And so I think they thought, okay, he's maturing into the guy they want him to be. So he might be a bit of an underachiever. I'm more hoping he's along the lines of what the other Lawson was, which is I don't care about the sack numbers as much as I care
Right,
about
yeah.
does he get pressure.
Right.
Let other guys clean it up. If you can kind of get there and cause the quarterback to have to move out of the pocket, that's accomplishing, maybe not a sack, but it's accomplishing getting him off their rhythm and disrupting. So, yeah, I'd like to see, him have a few more sacks, but I think, all things considered, how late in the game it is for, the season starting and everything. I think to me, that was a steal for a 6th rounder.
Yeah. And just like when they picked up Alex Lewis a couple of years ago, the whispers were for some reason they were going to cut him. I don't know what the deal is that way. And they gave up this 6th round pick, which turns out, I guess, from what I read, it's the 49ers pick. Now, how do we get that 49ers pick? Do you guys remember that?
It's too many little trades. I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever it is. But
I don't know.
I want to go back to Ralph. Ralph, do you have any recollection of him at Clemson and with the Buffalo Bills at all?
Yeah, well, Buffalo, I do remember him. And, I think he started out, they were excited. I remember when he became a free agent, I thought the Jets were thinking, I was thinking that the Jets might be looking into getting him actually, because I felt like he was about to take off. Clemson, the thing about, I always worry about guys on these juggernauts, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, because you're never really sure whether they're the real deal or they're just so good because all the players around them take up so much of the energy of the other teams. And there's always going to be some of each on these teams. Shaq Lawson, the guy in that Oakland drafted, Cleveland Ferrell, a couple of years ago from Clemson, where they took him earlier than everyone expected. He's been a kind of a bust. Same position. I think Lawson, he seems to, stick with the play. I don't see any reason why he can't be a better player. He looks on film like he doesn't quit on plays at all. But like I said, you just never know with these guys from these big schools.
Yeah, you don't know. Ray, do you remember when he was at Clemson at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't remember. I can't remember. He wasn't the main guy, I don't think, on that line that year. But they've had a good defensive line for the last 5-6 years. So it's kind of like Alabama. They're a bit of a factory with that. So the names all start, going by the wayside with you. You remember them briefly, and then they're in the pros. And I agree with Ralph. A lot of times they get in the pros and they aren't. They don't have all that, high-end talent beside them, and you realize they aren't. Without that, they aren't, nearly as good as they were in the college level. But he I think has the ability to definitely make a difference, and maybe Sal and the defensive guys can get that out of him.
There was definitely a lot of discussion in the Jets hierarchy about how he'll fit in the system. And obviously it came up positive. So we're going to go with what they said. And I think it was a darn good trade. And he deserves a lot of kudos for that. All right, let's go on. Listen, on Tuesday by 4:00, the Jets and every NFL team have to get down to 53 players. They just played a game 2 nights ago. They tied on the last second play the Eagles. I think it was 31-31. But the question I have for you both is, could you pick 2 players who may have played themselves onto the roster? We'll each do that, and then we're going to go with 2 players that maybe played themselves off the roster. So, Ray, not just the last game, but all preseason games, do you have 2 players that maybe played themselves on the roster?
Okay, well, I was just going by the last game thinking that, might be they're on the bubble and did it. But, and I said Jeff Smith and Josh Adams. Now, I know Joe drafted P. Ryan, right? Or was that McKay? No,
yeah, he did.
Joe did. So, they don't like to cut the guys they draft. But, boy, every time Adams is on the field, I like what he does. So, and he seems to move the pile a little bit, unlike anybody else we have. So I really like Adams. I really would like to see him stick. And Smith impressed me last night with several of those plays, showing speed, and he can. It's funny, they compared him with Brad Smith. The announcers did, and I thought the same thing. He reminded me of Brad Smith with a couple of those gadget plays they ran for him.
You know what stood out to me, Ray and Ralph, with the Jeff Smith plays, the two like jet sweeps and the couple of reception. I said to myself, boy, are they trying to squeeze him in as a slot receiver? And maybe Jamison Crowder is on the block, maybe to get something else, because maybe they really like him. And I wrote about that on Jets Rewind. Ralph, do you think there's any chance that Jamison Crowder could get traded by our first game?
I don't think so. Now that they somewhat filled the Lawson hole. No, I don't. I don't think Jeff Smith. And I heard someone else say, "Hey, Jeff Smith, he can do those kind of gadget plays." That's going to be Elijah Moore. I don't think Jeff Smith's going to make the team. I think that all that stuff is for Elijah Moore, who's better at it than Smith anyway. I agree with you about Adams, Ray. I hope that if it comes down to he and P. Ryan, that Douglas does have the security to make the right move. Maybe they keep 5. I don't know. But I think that would be too many. But I think he's better than P. Ryan, definitely.
Well, the one thing I'll say, and Ralph, I'll get to your 2 players, and I was going to get into the running backs later, but Dobbins just went out for the season. I guess he was on the Ravens.
Yep.
And there are 17 games this year. And I know it might sound crazy, but I would love the Jets to keep all 5. And if they didn't, I happen to agree with Ralph, and you too, Ray. I think Josh Adams is a better player than P. Ryan. I don't even think it's close.
Josh Adams led the Eagles in rushing one year, and I can see why. He doesn't quit, man. There was one play where he got hit behind the line of scrimmage about 4 yards, spun around. He maintained his balance, and he made it into about a 1 or 2 yard gain. That's like a 5-yard, really good play. He gives you everything out there, and
right.
And he's strong. He's definitely their most physical back.
Yeah, he gets up ahead of steam. It's you don't get in his way. And I wrote in our latest article, though, which Ray had helped me write, I still think right now Ty Johnson is the best running back on the team. I really do.
Oh, I do too.
Right now, yeah.
Right now. I mean, I'm a Michael Carter fan. I was hoping he'd get the most touches, but I don't want to say it's not close. I think the gap between every one of those 5 running backs is not huge. Even LaMichael P. Ryan, it's not huge.
Right.
He's serviceable, but I would love for them to somehow work some magic and keep 5. All right, Ralph, give me your 2 players that may have worked themselves onto the roster.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with Josh Johnson, who actually looked like a professional quarterback. I just read a guy who said Mike White's going to make her and they're going to cut Josh Johnson. To me, Mike White is not a professional quarterback. It's his 4th year in the league. He doesn't look the part out there, and I would really be disappointed if they cut Josh Johnson instead of him. Another guy I'm going to go with, he might have made the team anyway, probably would have, is Berrios. The thing about Berrios, to me, that solidifies it. This guy is such a good kick returner and punt returner. He's so dependable. I really want him doing both of those. I don't want Elijah Moore doing it. This guy is good enough. He's always going to catch it, and he can break it for 20 or 30 yards. The thing about Berrios, you compare him to Jeff Smith and your buddy Vincent Smith. The difference between those guys is that Vincent and Jeff Smith are fast. Berrios is quick, and I think quickness is more important in football, and you can see it. He just makes things happen. I'm glad that he's going to make the team because I really want him on the kicks.
He doesn't quit. If you focus on him, even when the play is not to him, or even if they're running in the opposite side of the field, he goes 110% in every play. Ralph, those are two good picks. I'm going to pick, and Ralph knows I have a weakness for one of them. This number 79 defensive lineman, Tanzel Smart, I was watching him. I think he has, the way he gets off the ball, he reminds me of an old Jet, John Elliott, who was one of my favorite all-time Jets. It's unbelievable. I was focusing on him. I think he has to get some coaching as far as technique beyond him getting off the ball, but he has the ability. And I had mentioned that if they had some guts, maybe you try him at offensive guard like they did with Brandon Moore. But that's one of my picks. I want him to make the team. And the other one is, and he actually got smoked on one play. He looked silly. I have a weakness for this JT Hassel. I want this guy to make the team, and he doesn't quit. He has that handicap, which we talked about, on his left hand with only 2 fingers. So I'm going to say not just last game, the couple of games before that, I think he played his way onto the team. So my 2 picks are JT Hassel and Tanzel Smart. Ray, tell me, why don't you give us your 2 players that played themselves off the roster?
Okay. Well, and real quick, more on Josh Adams. He got kind of stuffed on that 2-point conversion about 1.5 yards behind the line, or behind the goal line, and still spun and fought his way across to tie it.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. He just seems to be able to move the pile a little bit and add some strength that I don't see with the other guys. As far as the reason I kind of laughed when you said Hassel, I think Hassel played himself off the. Now, I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't be upset if he made it. I think he's a good story too, and he showed signs in other games. But him and who was it that whiffed first? But
Sherwood.
Sherwood. But Sherwood's going to make it. But Hassel whiffed so bad on that, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is just going to be a long season for our DBs."
Thanks for your support. We're going to remember that during Christmas time. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I did have to laugh as soon as you said Hassel. I'm like, "Oh, good. Here go my outs." Daniel Brown, I think, played himself off the roster. I don't think he did anything, to really impress me. I'm not even sure about Griffin. I highly doubt Griffin will make it either. But I think Daniel Brown, with that fumble, kind of wrapped up his career with the Jets.
Yeah, I'm going to go next, and I had Daniel Brown too with stars on it. I don't think he's going to make the team. And if you remember, last year there was I think it was last year, could have been the year before. There was a argument they showed with Sam Darnold and Adam Gase, and they were arguing. Actually, it came out over Daniel Brown, how he wasn't doing his assignment, like on 2 or 3 plays in a row. So I think this guy is gone. I really do. I couldn't stomach that play when the guy literally just took that ball away from him. And I'll be honest with you, if the same thing happened to Cager, and the Cager play, it was a bad call, but there's no excuse for letting a defensive player just take the ball out of your hands. I remember going way back, I saw Teddy Bruschi do that a couple of times as a Patriot linebacker. He'd tackle a guy and somehow he'd end up with the ball. There's no excuse for that. The second player is I've seen enough of James Morgan. I'm done with him. I mean, I don't know.
Hero of the game.
I don't know if it was. He made one good play in 3 games, Ralph, which I'll tell you which one it was. But
the last one.
No, I don't even consider that. That's just a Hail Mary. His best play, I thought, was when he rolled out to his left, and his first target was the player who was short, and he ended up throwing a nice pass to Yeboah down the sideline. That was the only good play he made. But this guy, in 3 games, he has not improved an inch. I think it was a terrible draft pick. I don't know, again, if it was Adam Gase or Joe Douglas.
It was Douglas.
Yeah. The sooner this guy is off the team, I mean, give it to Mullins, which we'll get into later, or somebody else. He's just, I know. The guy is, he's a little bit better. The guy is just terrible. So those are my 2 picks, Daniel Brown and James Morgan, who I think played themselves off the roster. Ray, how many tight ends do you think?
Wait a minute, I didn't do mine.
Oh, Ralph, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ralph.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go with Isaiah Dunn. He's had 2 crappy games. He'll be a practice squad player at best. I could go with my whipping boy Lamar Jackson, but they might keep him if Eccles is hurt. I hope not, because I'd much rather have Pinnock.
Echoes practice today, Ralph.
Huh?
Echoes practice
Oh,
today.
did he?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's good. I guess I'll stick with Jackson then. Elijah Campbell too. I think he played himself off the team. I think Michael Carter's going to be the backup slot guy. They don't need 3 slot guys, and he didn't look good.
A couple of things about the game which I noticed. The backup center, he didn't make every play, but Jimmy Murray did not have a bad game. He made
they put him at guard. He's not very good.
Yeah, he said, but I don't know if they, if they wanted to start him, but they can't, because Connor McGovern, I think he's better at center. And the other thing is, I had mentioned this tackle. Let me just grab his.
David Moore. No, you mean Grant
Herman,
Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue. Now could be developmental. The reason being, he grades out terrifically on run plays, over 80% from Pro Football Focus, but it's the passing plays. Which
he got turnstiled a couple of times.
Which happens to a lot of college players that come in, especially the big schools like Ohio State and Clemson. They're great on the run, but on the pass play, they're not that good. And if they see there's some potential, hopefully he'll end up on the practice squad. Hopefully he slips through waivers.
He's got a ways to go. I'm not.
He's developmental, but he shows something on the run, so I'd be a little patient. And also the guy Davey Moore, who they picked up, he played from the guy they got from Carolina. I don't think he did awful either.
I watched him every play. Actually,
Go ahead, give us a report.
He's got a ways to go. I think on most plays he was doubling. He and tackle were doubling up on someone. I felt like he didn't look like he'd be comfortable going one-on-one. I think he might at some point. He's certainly nowhere ready to play big time football.
How did they get all those yards though on the ground? There were holes there too. I know they ran to the left side a lot.
Yeah, they did run to the left more, which Fant was on the left. Feeney was there. Feeney every game he has like an offensive lineman butt fumble type play. He had another one the other day. It's kind of scary to know that he's our depth guy. They're really thin there. They've had some injuries and oh boy, we're stuck with it. I got to feel like that is one position that Douglas is going to really comb the waiver wire for cuts.
Yeah, and it's thin all around the league because today one of the Colts offensive tackles, he's out for the year. He was a starter. Not a great.
The injuries are scary. It really is
unbelievable, and it's just incredible. All right, Ray, how many tight ends do you think the Jets will keep? And who do you think they'll be? Let's consider Wesco a tight end.
I think they'll keep 3. Croft, Herndon, and Wesco. And I think we're going to need 3 because 2 of them are going to mainly be blockers, which would be Croft and Wesco, and then hopefully Herndon can actually make a difference as a receiver more than as a blocker. But I think one of the things in the preseason that doesn't happen is they don't worry about blocking assignments for like having Wilson move a tight end over to the other side to help on somebody. They don't, have the running back chip someone like they will in games. So you're going to want guys who can block. And I think that's going to show a little bit of difference in the blocking that we're going to see on passing plays once the season starts. Because that's really, to me, I think our offensive line so far has been fine run blocking. Most of all 3 games, we've run the ball fairly well. It's when we get around to protecting Zach on pass plays, especially in practices against the first team, that we started showing.
Okay.
we have a ways to go. So.
Yeah. I'm going to go next, Ralph, because I agree with him on exactly what he said. But I just wanted to ask Ray, uh, you would take Yeboah as part of the 16-man practice squad, I
Yeah,
assume.
I'd like to see him get on the practice squad. I don't think to me, he didn't earn a spot. I know he had a good game
Friday.
Friday night, but I didn't. Overall, I don't think he did enough to earn a spot unless they keep a fourth one, which I highly doubt they will. But if they do, then I would keep Yeboah.
Right. Okay. So I agree with Ray. Ralph, what's your feeling?
Kind of agree with Ray too. Yeboah, one thing that concerns me, because I kind of like, some things about him is in college and with the Jets, I think he tends to let balls get to his body. He's not a good hand catcher. Doesn't seem to instinctively do that, which is going to mean he's going to drop some, and I know he did in training camp. If he could clean that up, I think he definitely has a future in the league. Chris Herndon, I've had that guy's back for 3 years. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they dumped him. I really wouldn't. I mean, he's just done nothing. I don't know what's going on with him. It just doesn't seem to be clicking. Maybe he needs a change of scenery, or maybe he just doesn't have the fire in him, because he does have some talent. But at this point, I think I'd lean toward them keeping him, but I think they have other options. He's not. I don't think it'd be a huge loss if they're fed up with him.
Okay. As far as after the preseason, what unit concerns us the most? I'm going to start, and to me, it's linebackers. It's not even defensive backs. We have Mosley there, but he's talking about starting these two rookies. They look so overwhelmed the last game. I just can't believe it. I'm just so concerned. I'm concerned about our back seven, not our front four. But the linebackers really scare me, and I really think that Cashman should start. I really do. He should start at one of the linebackers, but that's the area I'm most concerned about. Ralph?
I totally agree with you. Cashman, he looked great, not because he was great, but because Sherwood and Hamza were like lost in space there. They just felt like they didn't know where to go. Their instincts. Sherwood had a very poor 40 time. I'm not a 40 guy normally, but it was really bad. It was like on the 4.7s. And on that play where he missed the tackle, I think speed was a part of it. He didn't really get a good shot at him, even though he had an angle. The idea that he can draft two guys in the 5th and 6th round and take them and convert them and start them opening day, to me, is amazing. That is a leap of faith like I cannot remember. If he pulls this off, then he's a genius. I mean, I can live with one of them, but I'm with you. I think Cashman, as long as he stays healthy, should be out there. And I'd rather have Noah Dawkins playing the strong side than Sherwood too. I mean, they're just not ready.
Ray, what position really scares you going into the season?
My main one is the offensive line, because now picking up Lawson today could change, all that, because my reason I'm saying the offensive line was that when Lawson went down, it was like, well, now we're going to have to outscore teams, and I'm just not sure we have the firepower to do that very much. We definitely have to be able to run the ball, to be able to throw the ball, and I think we'll be able to. But if the protection on Zach is as bad as it was against starters as it was in the practices, then it's going to be basically a shootout every week, because of our defensive backfield, which would be my normal first pick, isn't going to stop anybody by the looks of it. So I said the offensive line because I think we're going to have to outscore teams. Now, Shaq Lawson, hopefully he'll kind of step in where, Carl Lawson was, and kind of bring things back to what it was like earlier in the training camp. And then, that could change things.
Right, absolutely. All right, as we enter the fourth quarter, I want to jump to the backup. Well, wait a minute. Do you think Joe Douglas will cut any of his draft picks from 2020? And we touched on this. Ralph, why don't you start with that?
I hope he does. I really do, because there are definitely some cuttable ones. I think Zuniga's job, I thought it was saved when Carl Lawson went down. Now that they got this Lawson, I think they should cut him. If he doesn't get on the field, within a few weeks, I would just get rid of him. He's useless. P. Ryan, it's not bad. James Morgan, I think he'll go to the practice squad. You remember James Morgan didn't really have a preseason last year. The thing about Morgan compared to White is that White's been in the league 4 years. What you see is what you get with him. Morgan at least does have a strong arm. I don't particularly think he's got a future, but I'd cut him actually. I don't know Cameron Clark, what his status is and what his future is. So I guess we can't count him. But I would say, yeah, they should cut one, and I think they will cut one.
All right, so go through that again quickly. Maybe.
So you got Ashton Davis. They're not going to cut him. Zuniga, I think they might cut him. James Morgan, I think they might cut him. P. Ryan, probably not, but it's possible. Bryce Hall, no, and Braden Mann, no. So I think it'll be one of those three guys.
Okay, Ray, why don't you go as far as his first draft?
Yeah, I agreed with Ralph on all three of the Morgan, Zuniga, P. Ryan, but I believe he'll cut Morgan for sure, and I'm fairly sure. I feel fairly confident he's going to cut Zuniga. He's shown so little. P. Ryan to me is the question mark, because I think he likes him, and they don't seem to give Adams a lot of play. So if they don't keep 5 running backs, my fear is Adams is going to be the one to go. But at this point, the way they looked in the preseason and between that and last year, I think I'd say P. Ryan is on the bubble, but I don't think he is really. So
yeah, I agree with both you guys. I think I don't think they're going to wait on this Cameron Clark. I think there'll be an injury settlement. Zuniga, get rid of him. And you heard my feelings about James Morgan. I've seen enough of this guy. Look, if you said to me, who would you rather have, James Morgan or Nick Mullins? Nick Mullins is awful. After that game, I didn't want any part of him, but it's a slight improvement over him. And I would say, yeah, get Nick Mullins. What's your take on that, Ray?
Well, one thing I say about Nick Mullins is the last time he looked like an NFL quarterback was when he played the Jets.
But they all do.
Last year. But, I agree, because to me, Morgan, the only thing he has is a strong arm. It's not accurate. His decision-making isn't always the best. He's all like.
Well, you know why he was successful in the Hail Mary? Because instinctively he throws into crowds on every pass. Who was it? Cager? He threw to. He had 3 guys around him. He never looked to the other side of the field.
When we went for 2, when we could have taken the lead earlier at 25-24, he had the guy beating him across the back of the end zone and underthrew him so badly that the
underthrew him. It was behind him. Other than that,
behind him and low.
Right. And
it was low, so the DB dove and intercepted it. And I was like,
really, the only other pass he made besides the one I called with rolling out was Yeboah. He was wide open over the middle. I mean, Ralph, you could have made that throw. It was just unbelievable. All right, as we're going to wrap this up. We're going to go right back to the trivia question. Do you guys want to add anything else before we go back to the trivia question? All right. Ralph, read the trivia question again.
Oh, I thought you had one more question for us. Weren't you asking something about, or was that?
Well, I was going to do
did you say they stayed pat with the backups? Okay. Yeah.
Stick or cut, but we kind of covered that.
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, Daniel Brown, here's the names I had, okay? Daniel Brown, stick or cut?
Cut.
Ray.
Cut.
Dan Feeney, stick or cut?
You're going to have to stick with him, although I'd love to cut him.
Exactly.
Vincent Smith.
I think they're going to stick with him. if they stick with him, they probably cut Adams. It's like one or the other. I think those two.
Ray?
I don't know. I'd rather see him keep the other Smith, but I think they'll keep him. Vincent.
Okay. Here's one for you. I think he's on the bubble. Nathan Shepard, Ray?
Well, a lot of our linemen haven't looked too bad on the interior this year. I'm going to say they're going to stick with him, but it won't surprise me if they don't.
Ralph?
Yeah, well, Tanzel's smart it's a numbers game. I think they'll stick with him. I think Marshall will go on the practice squad.
Okay, and the last one, Ralph, you start. Lamar Jackson.
They're cutting him.
Okay, Ray?
Yeah, I think he's gone. He might end up on the practice squad if they want to be nice to him.
I think he's cut. And I think we've seen the last of Lawrence Cager. I mean, I like.
It's a shame because he actually plays well. Other catch that was challenged was a tremendous catch, that low one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's so thin and he's so slow. He's just a tall, gangly possession receiver.
You know what I'll say though? The first 2 games last year, or it was the first 3 before he got hurt, he was open at least twice, and Sam Darnold did not see him. I couldn't believe it. It was like he was so wide open; it was unbelievable. So, all right, Ralph, let's go back to the trivia question.
All right, so the Jets last year were 2-14, their second worst season. Their worst season was 1-15, 1996. The next year, 1997, their opening game, which will be Carolina this year. That year was, who did they play, and what was the final score of the game? Coming off a 1-15 season.
Ray, you want to give it a crack?
I want to say that was the San Fran game that we lost in overtime. Is that wrong? Right? Maybe.
I think that was.
Wasn't that Parcells? Was it Parcells?
That was Parcells' second year, so I'm gonna say.
Wasn't it? No, that was Parcells' first year if it was San Fran.
No, that was actually.
Oh, you're right. That was
the year they went to the championship.
That is, you're right. That is. We came out with the old unis in that game. So yeah.
I'll take a wild guess. I'll say the Dolphins. They beat them. All right, go ahead, Ralph.
They went up to Seattle, and after a 1-15 season, opening game, they won 41-3. I was one of the most shocking. And if I didn't know at that point that coaches matter, boy, did I learn it that day.
Yeah.
So let's look forward to that in Carolina, huh?
All right, for Ralph Schrager, Ray Clifford, and Marty Shupak, for Jets Rewind. Until next time.